Hey, good evening, everybody. How's it going? Hope you guys had a good Tuesday. We are not going to delay too much longer. I'm just going to get right to it. And then we're going to go ahead and get to the weekly or nightly docket here. So, um, just to reflect, just a quick recap of today. We ended up swinging calls to the upside, and then we ended up taking a hedge, cutting the remainder of our calls, and those hedges ended up running about 226, 230%. So pretty good move there. Um, as far as the markets are concerned, so we saw the S&P up 3.06%. We saw the Nasdaq up 3.34%, and the Russell up 3.31%. The Dow also following at 2.8%. Um, in a couple different headlines. So every sector was green. We saw energy 4.3 leading the charge. In global news, the Reserve Bank of Australia is creating hopes of a dovish central bank pivots by raising rates by smaller than expected 25 basis points. Meanwhile, tensions continue to rise as North Korea launched a long-range missile over Japan as Putin threatened the West with nuclear action. European lawmakers approved a new law requiring electronic devices to use common chargers Type C. That's coming to Apple. In semiconductor news, many expect U.S. lawmakers to announce new measures restricting Chinese companies from accessing technologies enabling high-performance computing, while Samsung reveals plans to produce the world's most advanced chip within the 5 years. Lastly, Micron said it would spend up to 100 billion over the next 2 decades to build a computer chip factory in New York. So other than that, guys, labor markets experience its first jolt while the global economy and markets have softened throughout the year. The labor market has remained a bright spot. We've talked about it actually extensively about the subject because it's hard to talk about the Federal Reserve wage on inflation without discussing how a tight labor market keeps upward pressure on wages and overall measures. Additionally, it seems that every day there's a new headline about labor unions demanding more for workers, are demanding for more workers, and companies and service industries raising incentives to attract talent. On the other hand, technology companies continue to cut jobs and freeze hirings as their growth slows. So it indeed remains a tale of two labor markets. With that said, today's JOLTS data was a significant sign suggesting that strength may be waning. Today's report showed that the U.S. non-farm payroll non-farm job openings fell about 10% from July, August, and 11.17 million to 10.05 million, as we can see from the chart. And I'll post that really quickly. But as you guys can see from this chart right here, um, the 10% month over month decline is one of the largest on record, dating back to the early 2000s. It also shows that job openings peaked in March around this year, around 11.85 million, have been slowly falling since. Okay, so that's about it. There's obviously we did get that news towards the end of the day that the Elon Musk, who revived his deal to buy Twitter at the original $54 a share price just days before they were due to court. This news sent shares soaring towards the buyout price before they were halted for about 3 hours, opening up again briefly before the market closed. Twitter confirmed that it received Musk's letter of intent to complete the transaction at $54 a share and intends to close the deal with him. And that's actually what spurred this move to the downside here on Tesla. All right. So other than that, the man of the Mr. Brother, what's going on? How's it going, Jason? Thank you. Because let me go ahead and announce really quickly. All right. So anyway, that was it. You guys obviously saw Twitter ripping up, closing around $54 a share. Absolutely screaming up from the $43 level to the $53 level. Okay, so let's go ahead and let's look at Tesla and Meta going into tomorrow. So one of the things that we want to focus on, and one of the things that I talked about with people in my mentorship, uh, when we do our one-on-ones, I talked about specifically paying attention to price action. So while we swung Tesla to the upside, looking, and I did take profit on some of those calls, but ended up taking a hedge because this type of price action, when you're nearing a resistance, is usually a pitfall and shows that buyers are not really in control. And so right here, as you guys can see at this little tiny level, this is 155.75, which was my target this morning. If you guys are in the Discord, we saw 155.75. Not a single candle except for this one closes above that mark, and the next one we see that news come out. Thankfully that we got a 3-minute bounce off of 254, which allowed me to cut my calls and let those puts run to the downside to fill this gap. And that's exactly what we saw here, is a gap fill to the downside. I want you guys to pay attention to the bottom here on Tesla. Every single one of these candles close right around 242.30, and we bounce right off of 242, which was again my target to the downside for that gap fill. Since we have, and again, I think the news that spurred Tesla to the downside is actually news that, I mean, he has the cash to do so, and I don't really think that this puts Tesla in any sort of position. He's already dumped a ton of shares. But that being said, whenever we're looking at these zones, we usually want to identify the median. And the median here for Tesla is right above 249. And of course, 250 even. And you can see that all of these 5-minute candles close at 250. So if we're going to move back up for our third tap of resistance, we want to see Tesla open up above 250, basically replicating what we saw yesterday. Or what we saw today. And again, this was the whole plan. Not a single candle closed there. And one of these candles ends up closing at the end of the day towards 249. So we will be looking at Tesla to potentially move into its gap either tomorrow or towards the end of the week, unless we start to see price action that would lead us to believe that there is a possible um, uh, reversal in that area. So next we've got Meta. So Meta, this one actually, I ended up taking a downside call on, and it was right around here, and ended up like just barely pushing up against a stop, and then we ended up pulling back down and tapping. So this is basically the zone that we're going to be focused on here for Meta, right? Especially tomorrow if we open up in range. So right there, as you guys can see, then there's going to be that 50% mark. That's 140.80, or excuse me, yeah, that's 140.89. So for tomorrow, right? So we've got what appears to be, so take a look at this. This is a incredible setup, no matter where it goes. And again, it's not about being right. It's just simply about reacting and being on time, being ready to take the trade when it pops up. So that being said, we see every single candle bounce off of 139.44. So if that price remains above that level or opens up above that level with a gap up, that would be the level that needs to be lost. There's a gap to fill at 138.66, and I have a potential support from right here, right? And it could be just right there, but I have a potential support around 137. If we go to the 2 or the 4 hour, you guys can see that that support again has only been tapped. And this is, I do it per session. So 1, 2. So it could be that tomorrow we see a nice squeeze up and into this gap, which is 142.88, possibly even going and hitting the ceiling. We've got 143.94, and then we've got a ceiling here at 145.25 psychological number. So there is a good trade to the upside. There's a good trade to the downside. We would even be watching for a potential bounce, even though there's 3 rejections off the top. This is a very oversold stock right now, and we are getting into earnings season. So anyway, that being said, tomorrow, great setup on Meta. We're ready to take a trade. I'm pretty sure, regardless of what happens, I said this today while we were trading Tesla, and we had to keep everything light. We didn't really take any really big positions, but that was okay because the price action just was not indicative of a sizable move to the upside. Same thing with Meta. Meta did end up pulling back, bouncing off of that 139.35 or right before that gap fill, right at that top, and then reversing and going and establishing the 142 as a rejection level, which again, this is the level above us that we would need to clear. So this one, as you guys can see right here, it's basically got that nice tight consolidation pattern. So we'll see where this leads us. I did take a call, and I do have a way out of the money put just in case. So I took a little bit of a straddle, but we'll see how this plays out. One is very cheap, and at the end of the day, I can just stomp out of it or add to my position. So anyway, that's it. Meta, Tesla, looking really good. Of course, they held a divergence from the rest of the market today because as predicted, we ended up seeing Apple moving to the upside. This one actually closed at its original high right there at 146 at 16. You can see a candle close over here. This is actually where you break out and retest. So that's where I'm going to be looking for on most stocks, including Microsoft and SPY. As you guys can see, definitely looking like we could be establishing a new trend to the upside. Microsoft has a great setup and is only the only other thing on my watch list aside, and of course these things, they're not on my usual watch list, so I don't put them on high alert. But Microsoft might be worth taking a trade up into the 265 and 266 level. So, all right. Other than that, if you guys have any questions, thanks, Big Stepper. We'll have to get you one, man. So other than that, if you guys have any questions about my charts or my trades or whatever, let me know. But otherwise, if you guys have any requests or want anything, want me to take a look at anything, now's your time. I'm just unwinding here, so let me know. I do think before we move forward, that Tesla is more than likely gonna go back up to resistance for this third tap, and then I have downtrend here, so that would likely put Tesla into its gap. So this one's definitely on high alert as of tomorrow. So just drop a dollar sign and your whatever request that you want me to take a look at. So okay, I didn't have that on. SPY, of course. Okay. All right. Well, let's go ahead and start with SPY. So, as we talked about, the downtrend, right, that was broken, and we have to clean that up. This little accumulation, and this is a squeeze, okay? Right here, every time sellers take control, buyers continuously buy up SPY, right? Even though they gap down, buyers are still very aggressive. You close the month at 257, which is at bottom support, and you end up gapping back up onto support, pushing up and causing that squeeze with a gap up overnight. So that being said, and the way that we closed on SPY, I think that the next target, as long as we hold, and this is really going to be the benchmark for SPY, as long as we hold this right here, I think we'll be fine. But anywhere below 373.44, unfortunately, I think that we would likely go back for at least a 50% move back down to the 370 level. And that could just be a simple retest, or that could be a reversal, just faking out. But right now, I have a downtrend on SPY coming from the highs here. And I am of the belief here at the moment that SPY is more than likely going to move back up into the 390 or possibly even 381 levels. So, but that's as of right now. So just watching those levels again, it's not about being right. It's just about reacting accordingly. So as you guys can see, once we moved and closed here, We ended up gapping below. You can expect similar price action if you close back down below that mark. So, and then what do I think about the Twitter situation? I really don't think that it has very much to do with the price itself. I don't really think that it's worth because Elon already factored in this deal, months and months ago. So as of right now, I think that it could just be used as a price a price manipulation type thing. But that's it. I really think that it doesn't really affect it long term. And if anything, he might be able to utilize that for, you know, uh, advertisements, I mean, like it could really benefit, the Tesla as a whole. So, I didn't really read that. No. So anyway, yeah, that's it for me right now. You guys can look, at least, as far as SPY is concerned, nice ceiling right here. You did end up, seeing these candles close at 375.25. So that 376 and 375 level would be imperative in order to hold. So Microsoft has a six setup. Yeah, Microsoft actually looks really, really great following along with the market. The thing that I like about this the most, right, is anytime we can go back and historically look, anytime that you look at Microsoft, when it does this, let's go back, right? So even on this uptrend. So take a look at this real crazy chop. Even here, crazy chop, but there's another one here. Some of the biggest moves you get are when you see Microsoft start to skid. And here you see a gap down, it skids, not exactly, right? The same exact price action, but this, right, is essentially a bit the same, right? Still have that downtrend, still choppy, up and down, buyers, that's an accumulation, right? And so when sellers get aggressive and greedy, and then you see a big giant gap up like that, do you guys see where these candles close and sellers force the price down? That candle opens and pushes them up, which right now, this puts shorts up against the wall. And so there's certain trigger levels like 252 on Microsoft that would ultimately lead me to start looking for an upside play on Microsoft. This one does also have a falling wedge. So, a 50% retracement would give us at least 263. So I agree. It looks really good. So, but really, I think, I'll put that on the watch list for tomorrow to focus on one of them. But I still think that Meta and Tesla are pretty pent up. So whatever move they make, I'll be following along with that as well. So, um, but if you guys don't have any questions or if, good info on Microsoft, yeah, no problem. But if you guys tomorrow, we will be. I'll just be in the Discord, live trading. We'll do pre-market prep and we'll figure it out from there. But I have a really busy day, so I might not be able to like be on present back and forth. But I will be live on YouTube or on Discord, no matter what. So we'll keep you guys updated on that. But otherwise, if you guys have any last requests, go ahead and give those to me now, and we'll take a look at those, and we'll close out, and we'll get up early tomorrow morning. So, did I ever take the trade on MRO? No, but I'm actually thinking about it, and I've been talking about it, Chaden, now for a couple of days. I really think that MRNO could be a new all-time high. From here, I think 2757 and 2866 are good trigger levels to take this up to 31. But ultimately, I think that as long as it holds above 2757, if it breaks there, that you should be good to go. And even if you wait for a retest, it looks really good. So, but anyway, let's take a look at AMD. Oxy looks really good too. So okay, so amongst the sectors, semiconductors, unfortunately, are just not doing well. And today we saw that exact same thing from AMD, which AMD, unfortunately, a lot of the times can be a pain in the ass to trade. I'll be honest with you. It's one of the reasons that I'm not a big fan of trading it, but it did take this little wedge and push it to the upside. It looks like it's holding its uptrend, and you guys can see it's real, guys. I haven't touched this chart, so this means that whatever I left here held. And this is why we find these levels and why it's so important to learn to identify and train your brain to do so. Look right here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Look where these candles close underneath, right? $69. It looks like you tap, yeah, 69. And there's a tiny itty bitty gap above you that you may end up seeing broken to the upside. But what we can monitor here, and this is a part of my strategy, is for the most part, when a candle closes, and we do have this 66.90 level that ended up being a floor, and that's going to be your 75% mark. But pretty much every single candle that closes below or above that median leads to a move towards that resistance or that support. So what we can do is just expect the same thing. If a candle closes above this, then watch for AMD to hopefully go and ladder, push up to, I would say 70.21 is a good target. But below that, you still have a gap at the floor underneath this median. So if you gap down, I would watch for a retest, possible full gap fill of that median, and then another leg down to the support, which is going to be $66. So, but you're kind of tightly trapped in range, terrible volume right now. So I would definitely, and this is actually where you could end up seeing another leg to the downside. This is showing not a lot of strength here. So so let's take a look at Apple, which is just going to basically look exactly like Microsoft. Now, on the 4 hour, you have this doji. The candle closes right up against that doji. We also have this solid key level right here. Look at that candle close here. That's beautiful. It doesn't get any better than that. 146.20 on Apple. So let's go take a look at that. That's the nice floor there. So here's the deal, right? As of right now, this little downtrend is broken, and so now we're looking at this, oops. Yeah, so now we're looking at this recent high, recent lower high, right? So Apple, kind of like AMD, is bunched up. And what we can do is we can measure this out, right? So right now, this is currently, and I know this might be confusing because you guys just saw me draw a big box. But in this case, right, we can separate this as a day trader, and we can see that the majority of these candles are closing on top of 144.78. Candle close below that, and I would anticipate a put or a move down to the I have it marked at 143.60. It candle closed below that, and you could end up seeing another leg to the downside. And then that would end up being your gap fill, which is at a really decent floor. That's 142, 13. All in all, this is going to be what your biggest concern is, right? So 143.60, that's the pivot point there. If you fill your gap, there's a possibility to go to 140, 140.66, kind of like Tesla. So take a look at Tesla, right? Same thing, bunched up, but it just had bad news, which drove it down. So the gap is available to the downside, and there's a gap available to the upside. So I would be wanting to see at least a 15-minute candle push. And then if you do take the trade, you would want to use this 146 as your stop, in order to make sure that you don't get caught. Candle close, of course. So we'll do Lucid too. So Lucid, I was just talking about this one today. This one fell out of that bear flag really nicely, but price seemed to have consolidated here a good bit. So right now, and the way that we can measure this out, Okay, so right here, um, and it may be, hold on one second. Okay, never mind. So here it is. Lucid Daily right now has a floor here and a ceiling here. This is 1583. You closed with a hourly flag. You can see the candle closes right here, right there. So that's going to be kind of like your right there, basically $16. But you have a downtrend that would have you up around 1634. That's starting from the highs, moving down to the lows. So if 1634, 1635 is broken, then I would start aiming for targets around $17.15. So Netflix. Okay, so I talked about this one today. Absolute dude, this is just bonkers because if you're a patient trader, you're able to sit and watch and wait. And if you're taking trades when they break their zones, it could take you weeks, right? But all in all, this is a great example of not of candle closes. Not a single candle closes below the median of 234.35. If a candle closes below that, that's it, right? That's where I'm more than likely going to be seeing Netflix move to the downside. So candle close below 234 or 234.35. Watch for Netflix down. Netflix did not break and make a new low, but instead held. So if it has, or if Netflix ends up putting pressure back up against this wall, which the wall is at 246.15, then I would imagine you're going to take a crack at your highs around 250. 250 marks where Netflix could continue up into its gap, where it's got two. It's, I think if I remember correctly, it was 257.50, and then of course 260 on the dot. So um, what did you say? Should I download what's it called? You should download what's it's called. Absolutely, what's it called? It's a good one. Um, anyway, anybody else have any questions? Kind of a slow night, so we'll go ahead and wrap it in. I'm gonna drink my my liquid death and my gin and cool it and get ready for another good day tomorrow. So I'm over here bartending. I got one of these as a gift for myself. Why do you trade three stocks? That's a really good question. So each stock has its own behavior, right? Its own personality. And you, the more that you get to know a stock, the more instinctual, um, the easier that you can track the movements. And again, you know, sitting on cash today, Tesla never broke range. Was I able to take a hedge and add to it? Absolutely. That ended up being a quick day trade to the downside. But I was able to track that, knowing how Tesla moves, knowing that it's up against a resistance, and just again following price action. It's just a stock that I'm familiar with the price action. I know that people are going to flock to Tesla, and so what I do is I basically cut out the anticipation and feeling of missing out, and I just stick to Tesla. Can you, anybody on here can tell me, can't tell me that Tesla at least doesn't give a massive move at least once a month? Massive, right? A big move, or just gives you clean breaks in range. Right here, we get a solid bear flag. I mean, really just a beautiful bear flag. We close like that, and right here. So, and then after hours, this closed out, and then we see an open underneath that, and we get a beautiful dump to the downside. So all that being said, it's just about getting really good at a strategy and then getting really good at using that strategy on a stock that you know behaves in a way that you can comprehend, react to, and trade to. So, yeah. like for me, I'm not a big commodity trader. I don't trade silver, don't trade gold, just because it just doesn't really fit with my trade setup plan. All right. Would a fake out invalidate a broadening wedge? Because I see a wall on SPY at 382, similar to Apple. Thanks, man. Yeah, you can download Robinhood. Okay. So I think what you're probably talking about, right, is this. Motherfucker. Bruh. What is going on, dude? Let me draw. All right. Apparently I'm not allowed to chart anymore. Um, am I back to streaming daily? For the most part, yes. Okay, so let's try this again. So I think you're talking about this, right? Um, a 382. I just don't have the broadening wedge there. If this is a broadening wedge, then SPY could end up going and rejecting, absolutely. Going back down, faking out, and moving and making absolutely hardcore new lows. And that could be led by some sort of bad news overnight, right? That's simple. A lot of stocks didn't break the resistance and held underneath those sell levels. So that could be the case, but right now I see, resistance could be as high as 408. Or, if we ended up reversing and falling back into the 370s, we could see, moves down into the 350s and then, 345. So all right. Well, I'm going to go ahead and call it a night, guys. Thank you guys for tuning in. We'll be live tomorrow morning, 9 p.m. Eastern time, or 9 a.m. Eastern time, excuse me. I'll be live in the Discord. If you guys are part of the mentorship, you guys can. I'll be live tomorrow at 7:30 Eastern time AM. But you guys, I am taking one more bi-weekly mentor, a mentoree or whatever you want to call it. And that'll be it for the rest of the year. So, um, thank you. Yeah, Simple Stack, sure. So, but anyway, you guys have a wonderful night. I appreciate you guys. If you guys want any details, that's posted in the Discord, on the mentorship thing. But other than that, thanks, guys. Appreciate you. Peace.